In this video example, we're going to take you through everything you need to know to get started with MetaLocator. The first thing you'll need is a free MetaLocator account. Just go to MetaLocator.com and click on any of the Start Your Free Trial buttons. That'll take you to our sign up page. Go ahead and enter your name, choose an email address and a password, and click Sign Up. The first 30 days of MetaLocator are always free. Now that you've got your free MetaLocator account, the first step in the process is to create an interface. Interfaces are what will be installed on your website, and it's what your customer ultimately sees. Click Continue under Let's Create an Interface. In this example, we're going to create a store locator, so click Select underneath Store Locator. Next, you'll be presented with a few layout options. In this example, we're going to choose Rich Media. Feel free to scroll to the right to see other layout options available. Once I click Select under Rich Media, it's going to install that interface into my account, and that opens the Interface Builder. The Interface Builder is the main way we modify interfaces in MetaLocator. Before we make any changes, we're going to take you on a quick tour of how this is set up. The options are grouped into different option groups on the left. So I can click through these and quickly preview the options that are available in that category. Off to the right is a preview of the interface that we're building. As I make changes on the left, those results are immediately reflected on the right. Let's dive in and start making some changes and see how they impact the output. One of the most common changes is to change the color. So let's go under Style and Color and notice one of the colors that's available is the primary color. I'm going to go ahead and change that from this blue to a red color. That's going to change every element in the interface that is associated with the primary color to red. The next thing I'm going to change is the secondary color. Right now that's a bit of a charcoal blue. I'm going to change that to a slightly different hue of the red that I chose for the primary color. There we go. Now I've chosen my primary and secondary colors. Another example of a common change is to add or modify elements in the search form. In this example, I'm going to add a keyword search to the search form. I do that by clicking on the search form group, and then I'm presented with a list of elements that can be added or removed from the search form. I see keyword in that list. I'm going to go ahead and check the box next to keyword. I'll expand the keyword checkbox to show the options that are available for keyword. Notice that when I checked the box next to keyword, a text box appeared in my search preview. The first thing I'm going to do is add a placeholder for that text box. Enter a keyword. I'll make that change and notice that that is immediately reflected in the preview. I'm also going to add a label. I'll call this the keyword search. I'll also enter a tooltip while I'm in here. Please enter a keyword. That's all the options I'm going to change related to keyword. But one thing I'd like to do is put it to the left of the search box. I can do that by grabbing the controls on the left and dragging it up above the Submit button. That's how you basically make modifications to the search form. Now the next example I'm going to cover is removing the image from each result. I don't happen to have an image for each one of my locations, and so I'm going to remove that. I'm going to go over to Results, and under List, I'm going to expand the list. List refers to our list of results. And so I can see that image has a checkbox next to it. I'm going to go ahead and clear that checkbox, and that will remove the image that's displayed from each result. Now the next part I'm going to focus on is this list of buttons that says website and email. In my data, I don't actually have a website for each location, and I'd also like to change the email button to say contact me instead of email. So again, still in list, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to see this container called links. In there, I'm going to go ahead and remove the button called link. That gets rid of the website button. And the next thing I'm going to do is expand this email button Under there, I can see the link text is set to email. I'm going to change that to contact. As I work in this interface, one of the things I notice is this details button. When I click on details, it opens up an entirely new template that takes up the entire horizontal or vertical space and has some long form copy, a big map, and some other details. The way to modify that is to modify the details template. So previously we've been working exclusively within list. In this example, we're going to expand details, and that opens up an entirely separate template where we can add and remove things from the details pane. So by clicking on details, I can see I've got a big image, I've got a couple buttons, I've got the title of the location, and I'm going to make a couple changes to that based on the data that I actually have. So I don't have a narrative description for each one of my locations, so I'm going to go ahead and hide that by unchecking the box. I also don't necessarily want this link to Street View, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. And maybe I also don't want this detail map since I've got the results right off to the right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove that. That gives me a nice compact details pane. I'm satisfied with it, and so I'm just going to close it. Feel free to explore all the settings available, going through every group and looking at each individual element, making sure to expand any available options to really get an understanding of the power of this software. That concludes the settings that we're going to change in this tutorial video. Now we're going to move on to the data. So far we've just been looking at sample data. You may have a list of your stores, and the first thing we need to do is upload that list into MetaLocator. We're going to do that by first downloading the sample data. We want to make sure that our data is presented in the same way the sample data is assembled. So let's open that up. That gives us an Excel spreadsheet containing some columns that you'll probably recognize. Things like name, description, address, city, state, postal code, and so forth. This sample file is exactly what's driving this particular demo. And so you'll want to make sure that your data is in the same or similar format and organized in the same way. Copy and paste your data into this sample before moving on to the next step. Now that you've got your data organized, we're going to go ahead and click Save and Continue. You should have a CSV ready to import at this step. That's going to bring you over to the primary import screen, where you can choose how you want to get data into MetaLocator. The most common option is to upload a CSV. The next most common is to import from Google Sheets. It's basically the same process, except for instead of taking it from a file on your desktop, we're connecting to a Google Sheet. In this example, we're going to upload a CSV, namely the exact same one that we're working with through the demo. I'm going to click Upload a CSV and then choose a file from my computer. I have a number of sample files available, and I'm just going to pick one of those. The first thing MetaLocator is going to do is it's going to try to match my columns that in my spreadsheet with the columns already in MetaLocator. As you can see here, every green column has been correctly matched to something already in MetaLocator. However, there was one column in my sample spreadsheet that doesn't exist in MetaLocator. I can choose to map that column to something that already exists as a system column in MetaLocator, or I can ask that it be created as a custom field, which is the default. By clicking Next, that field will be created automatically and the data will be imported accordingly. I'm going to go ahead and click Next to continue. If you're just getting started, at this screen, simply choose Add. There's no data in MetaLocator yet. Your sample data will always be there, so all the other options aren't really relevant at this point. If you were to come through this step one more time and you wanted to wipe out the data in MetaLocator with what you're importing, you'd go ahead and click Replace. See the documentation to learn more about some of the other synchronization options. Because I'm adding data, I'm just going to go ahead and click Finish. You can see that the data has been properly imported, but MetaLocator noticed that I don't have latitude and longitude for some of the data that I imported. In order to plot this data on a map, we need to have latitude and longitude. The process of transforming an address into latitude and longitude is called geocoding. To geocode our data, we're going to go ahead and click Continue. That'll bring up the geocoding screen. Go ahead and click Start Geocoding to geocode all of your data. If you have lots of records, this might take some time. Feel free to leave this screen while the geocoding process continues. In this example, it finished quite quickly. We'll just click OK. Now the last step in the process is to install it onto your website. All website editing tools are different, and so your experience might vary from this. But let's walk you through the most important steps of getting this on your website and making it look good. If you're picking up exactly where you left off, the next step is to get the installation code. Every interface has its own installation code, so if you make different interfaces, you'll be able to obtain the installation code for each one by clicking the Install button next to the interface in question. In this example, I'm going to click Install and grab the code. I'm just going to copy that to my clipboard, and then I'll switch over to my website editing tool. The way I want to add this code is in Code View. So notice in WordPress, for example, I'm in the code editor. I want to make sure I don't paste this directly into an editor as regular text. I want to make sure that I'm modifying the code. Once that code's installed, I can update it and view the page. Now I can see that that's properly installed on my web page. Now that the interface is installed on our website, we only have to do that once. And from now on, we can manage this data going forward in MetaLocator. We can even manage our interface settings. You may have noticed when we were first working with the interface, we were working with sample data. Now that we've actually installed our own data, when we go to the interface, now we're going to see our data. One of the important comparisons that could be made at this point is that we can enable and disable sample data in order to see how well the data that we upload compares to the data that MetaLocator expects. So if you come back into this editor and things aren't exactly as you had left it, the first place to look is how you uploaded your data. I can enable and disable sample data simply by toggling this on and off. If I wanted to manage elements of my data, I can either re-import a new spreadsheet, choosing Replace, or under All Records, I can manually make individual changes to these records. That covers our getting started process. I hope this has been as clear as possible and that you have a great time working within MetaLocator.